Hello students. Now we are going to discuss about Leigh Hunt's essay Getting Up on Cold Mornings eh, remaining part. In the previous video we discussed about Leigh Hunt and the beginning of the essay. Now we will discuss the remaining part of the essay. Thomson, the poet who exclaims in his Seasons. Thomson is a famous poet who has written Seasons. Falsely luxurious will not man awake, used to lie in bed till noon, because he said he had no motive in getting up. He could imagine the good of rising, but then he could also imagine the good of lying still, and his exclamation, "It must be allowed," was made upon summer time, not winter. We must proportion the argument to the individual character. A money getter may be drawn out of his bed by 3 and 4 pence. But this will not suffice for a student. A proud man may say, "What shall I think of myself if I don't get up?" But the more humble one will be content to waive his prodigious notion of himself out of respect to his kindly bed. The mechanical man shall get up without any ado at all, and so shall the barometer. An ingenious liar in bed will find hard matter of discussion, even on the score of health and longevity. He will ask us for our proofs and precedents of the ill effects of lying later in cold weather, and sophisticate much on the advantage of an even temperature of body, of the natural propensity, pretty universal, to have one's way, and of the animals that roll themselves up and sleep all the winter. As to longevity, he will ask whether the longest life is of necessarily the best, and the whether Holborn is the handsomest street in London. Leigh Hunt says that the poet Thomson, who accuses a man getting up late, Hunt says that even Thomson himself used to get up at noon, thereby expressing his laziness. So no one could refuse the pleasure of late rising. People say that early rising is good for health, but Hunt says that there are no proofs for this so far. But however, sudden change in temperature due to getting up from bed may bring shock to the body and thereby affecting good health. If in case early rising increases longevity of life, it's true. This does not mean that long things are beautiful. For example, the longest street in London, Holborn, does not mean that it is beautiful because it is long. Likewise, a short life with joys of late rising may be better than a long life with suffering of early rising. We only know of one confounding, not to say confounded argument, fit to overturn the used luxury, the innumerous bliss of the vice in question. A liar in bed may be allowed to profess a disinterested indifference for his health or longevity, but while he is showing the reasonableness of consulting his own or one person comfort, he must admit the proportionate claim of more than one, and the best way to deal with him is this, especially for a lady, for we earnestly recommend the use of that sex on such occasions, if not somewhat over persuasive, since extreme have an awkward knack of meeting. First, then admit all the ingeniousness of what he says, telling him that the bar has been deprived of an excellent lawyer. Then look at him in the most good natured manner in the world, with a mixture of assent and appeal in your countenance, and tell him that you are waiting breakfast for him, that you never like to breakfast without him, that you really want it to, that the servants want theirs, that you shall not know how to get the house into order unless he rises, and that you are sure he would do things 20 times worse even than getting out of his warm bed, to put them all into good humor and a state of comfort. Then, after having said this, throw in the comparatively indifferent matter to him about his health, but tell him that it is no indifferent matter to you, that the sight of his illness makes more people suffer than one, but that if nevertheless he really does feel so very sleepy, so very much refreshed by, yet stay, we hardly know whether the frailty of a yes, say that too, especially if you say it with sincerity, for if the weakness of human nature on the one hand and the viz intricate on the other should lead him to take advantage of it once or twice. Good humor and sincerity form an irresistible junction at last, and are still better and warmer things than pillows and blankets. Other little helps of appeal may be thrown in, as occasion requires. You may tell a lover, for instance, that lying in bed make people corpulent, a father that you wish him to complete the fine many examples he sets um, his children, a lady that she will endure her bloom or her shape, which M or W admires so much, and a student or an artist that he always so glad to have done a good day's work in his best manner. Reader, and pray, Mr. Indicator, how do you behave yourself in this respect? Intake. Oh, madam, perfectly, of course, like all advisers. Reader. Nay, I allow that your mode of argument does not look quite so suspicious as the old way of sermonizing and severity, but I have my doubts, especially from that laugh of yours. If I should look in tomorrow morning, indeed, ah, madam, the look in of face like yours does anything with me. It shall fetch me up at 9, if you please, 6, I mean to say. Hunt has not um, neither moved the argument to absurdity, nor he has advised to rise late. He just brings out the pleasure in late rising. Thus, we can say that everyone agrees that it is indeed very difficult to get out of bed on a cold morning. It's really very difficult to come out of bed in a cold morning. One gets up only on compulsion. In the first part of his essay, Hunt marks about the familiar torture that one experiences on getting up on cold mornings. No one wants to get up early in the morning because it is pleasant to lie in bed on cold mornings. Hunt deals with the experience of rising early in the morning in a more serious way. In the second part of the essay, Hunt puts forward clever and deceptive arguments in favor of laziness by quoting many examples and facts from history and literature. The writer compares the torture of getting up early on cold mornings to hellish experience. The writer also shows how lazy people avoid early rising and how do active people are motivated to rise early. Leigh Hunt does not advise to wake up late, but he just brings out the pleasure in late rising through his essay. Now, you have to write a brief summary of the essay, Getting Up on Cold Morning by Leigh Hunt. Thank you very much.